the weapons. Collective Edge. Welcome to the Weapons Collective Edge. Today we're going to go over the Musha series, it's right there, of samurai sword, and came boxed pretty much with some styrofoam inside of a decent little box. Got a nice cotton case for it. So in the end, handle's nice. It is just a cotton wrap, moderately loose. This is the economy series of the Musashi collection, and this particular one has a crane on the Suba. You can see that at all. And just a basic lacquer saya. All the fittings are just die cast. Blade has a fake Hammond, and it does have a bow high all the way through. And the fittings in here appear to be brass, but everything else is just cast. And blade here, like I say, it's got a fake Hammond. Geometry's not bad. Blade geometry here, I'll see if I can get it on the camera, but I'm not quite sure it'll show up. But instead of a nice V, it's kind of got a rounded shape. That does add to the thickness of the edge, so it doesn't get abused or break as easy. But I did Rockwell test it. It only tested on the back here at about, I'd say 15 Rockwell, which is pretty low, but soft is okay in the form of that it'll bend and not break. And otherwise, I didn't really get a heat treat on the edge. A reading, HR or HRC reading, and I would guess 40s, maybe up to 50 Rockwell. But overall, this is not going to be a high-end sword, but it can be a beater sword that you will probably not break. It'll more likely bend several times, maybe fatigue break at the end. But it was sharp, and still is, moderately sharp. I did some cutting earlier. I'll put that in the middle of the video and go over that. But overall, it's a durable sword. Even after going and cutting with it, it hasn't gotten really much of anything too loose. But I'll put up the cutting, and then I will finish off the video. So, see you in a bit. The Musha series sword does pretty good cutting straight out of the box. As you can see here, it's cutting relatively well, and this is just sharpened straight from the factory. I didn't alter the blade at all. But it is 1045. It's a medium carbon steel. It doesn't have a super hard edge, so it's not going to retain that edge for probably more than 20 or 30 cuts, depending on what you're cutting. It is a full tang katana, and so it can take a pretty good hit and not rattle. You're not going to break off the tang because it's not a little rat tail tang of any sort. But overall, it's been a pretty good cutter, as you can see, and it will perform just as well as any other machete or something similar, and create a good, fun sword. So as you can see, the cutting wasn't bad. It did some pretty decent cuts. Vegetables are pretty much anything can be cut with on a vegetable, but anyways, it did do a good job. It didn't really damage any of the blade, as far as I can tell. But this is a 1045 steel, the medium carbon steel, and so the Rockwell's not going to be as high. As I said, I did test the back, and it is pretty soft. So it should be durable, but not so much hold an edge for a long period of time. But it'll get the job done. If you do want it to be more of a profile that's a really good cutter, you would have to probably sharpen it yourself a little bit more and taper that down inside here. As far as distal taper, it's pretty much a solid sword. Doesn't have a whole lot of distal taper. Shape is right. and the control is right. It did come with a little maintenance instructions, which a lot of swords do. That's just a basic. Get a little picture of all that. It's just cleaning, keeping the blade oiled. It is just a regular high carbon steel. High carbon steels can rust quite easily, so you end up wanting to make sure that it gets polished clean if there's any kind of rust on it, and then re-oiled and make sure that you have a good coating on there. Outside of that, it's a lot more you have to do to the sword of this kind. If it was higher end, you just do a lot better maintenance. Make sure nothing gets in there. Don't let anything get inside the sheath, inside the saya, that is going to be, you know, wet, and keep moisture out of there. And other than that, it's a decent low-end sword. Like I say, this sword's between $50 and $80, more on the side of 50. So the crane style one, I will see if I can make sure I find a link to that one. But if not, I'll put up the same quality of this sword that is maybe just a different Suba on here. And overall, I would definitely recommend it at the price range. It's fun to play with. You don't really have to worry too much because you're not spending a lot of money. And I think that's the main selling point of this type of sword, is that you can abuse it and get your techniques down, make mistakes, and not feel like, oh, I just blew a, you know, $300, $400, $500 sword, and you know that gets pricey and really gets on your nerves. You're like, oh, I damaged my good sword. So getting one of these is great for just playing around with. But I've got a fellow YouTuber that puts up a great video to good demonstration of what this thing can take abuse of, and his name is Matthew Jensen, and I'm going to put up that link to him abusing the heck out of this particular type of sword. Slightly different model, but same blade style, and yeah, you can see what it can do. But if you like this video, please subscribe, and I will see you again. Thanks.